Janet with Try It Like It Created, and today I am working on a project with fairy stampers. And to begin, we're going to be making some background paper to stamp onto. And so I just have regular craft or copy paper. I have my Gelli Plate. I have some alcohol inks. And then I also have a spray bottle with a little bit of alcohol in it. And then I have my basic acrylic Liquitex in, this is a transparent mixing white. And then I have 2 brayers, and I am working on a scrap paper background. So to begin, we're just going to add our alcohol ink to our Gelli Plate. And so I'm just going to put some drops down. And I'm just going to do 2 colors at a time. And this is going to dry rather quickly. So I want to take my brayer and roll over it. And you can see that because of the colors I chose, you can see that it's covering the plate. All right, but it's a pretty thin application. Might be even hard to see here. Just for some texture, I'm going to give it a spritz here with some alcohol. This is rubbing alcohol. And hopefully that will pill up a little bit. And so I'm just going to let that dry for a second. If I were to put paper on here to lift a print, the only parts that would lift are the parts that are wet. And so I just want to give it a few seconds for that alcohol to dry. And then I'm going to add in my acrylic paint, and this is what's going to help lift that color. And what you want here is a very small amount. In fact, even half of that would be preferred. So I'm going to wipe off some here. All right, and so we want a good coverage of white over the whole plate. You can see how fine that coverage is. And then I'm just going to take a piece of paper and lift up that. So I'm going to put that down, give it a good rub. Make sure I've got contact across the whole surface. And then I'm going to lift. And there is my textured background. Hopefully you can see where, maybe up in here you can see where the spritzing activated. Okay, and some of the leftover paint that was on my Gelli Plate got lifted as well. But that's a nice print to use for a background. And what makes it work in lifting up what's dry there is that acrylic paint. And so I'm just going to go for another print here, not cleaning off my plate at all because we picked up most of what was there. And so now I'm just going to add in this green. And this one is dried up on me a little bit, so I'm going to have to clean that up a little after this. And then I'm going to add in the blue here. Okay, use my roller, or my brayer that I used for alcohol ink here. Now, if you wanted to put texture into this, you could. You could stamp into it with something for texture. You could, wad up some paper and kind of go in and make some texture on that surface. You could stamp. I don't have a lot going on here, but what I do have some gold glimmer spray that I made, and so let's just see how that works. If I mix this up and give it a little squirt here. Alright, so we're going to have to wait for that to dry on there before I can put the paint on. So that's going to take a few seconds. You could also go in with some additional color if you wanted to put some drops down. And you could spread this around with a paintbrush. I'm going to take a real little fine one here and just kind of do some markings. If I can get some of that to travel around on my plate. Alright. And then once again, to pick everything up, we're going to use our white acrylic paint, but it's just going to be a small drop. Alright, so I've got my white paint, and I'm going to get that to cover all over my plate so I can pick up the ink. And you can see I'm working here to get a really fine coverage of white, and I'm just rolling the excess off to the side. Take my paper, make sure I've got good contact. And then lift that off. So you can see the markings. You can see some of the glitter in here. And we did get some residue left. So I'm just going to take a scrap piece here and put it down to see what we can get picked up, and then I'll use this one again. So let's see. Yeah, so nothing came up. So, alright. Let's go in and do this again. So I'm using Ranger Alcohol Ink, and I am using one brayer to spread the alcohol ink and another one to spread the paint. So it looks like I'm picking up a lot of the ink, so I'm just going to add some more. Kind of like that. We'll let that dry a little bit. We'll give it a squirt of alcohol just to see what that does. Give it a few seconds to dry. Now your paint layer can get too thick, and if that happens, you're not going to be able to pick up the ink. So keep that in mind. You really want a very thin layer of paint. And there we've got a cleaner pickup. That's nice. Look at that texture. So for the next step, I am using some green cardstock, a leaf die, and my mini maker to just cut out some leaves. Sorry for the squeaky machine. And I'll just show you that I've cut out one here, where I've already cut a bunch of these. So this will be my last one. I'll set my machine aside, and the die and the sandwich goes back in its packaging. So now I have these leaves, and I just want to make sure that some are going in an opposite direction. So let me just flip 3 of them over. Okay, so I have those, and then I have a cosmetic brush here, and I'm using some Mowed Lawn Distressed Oxide. And so I am just going to go in and kind of give them a little bit of texture on the edges. I don't know, it doesn't look like it's showing up well, so let me set that aside and grab another color. I'll be right back. Alright, I found my vintage photo here. So we have to be careful with this one because it's brown, but I'm just going to go over the edges here just to give them a little bit of depth. Okay, so just real careful rubbing into the edges, some of them different than others. Since this was a lighter color, let's take that and kind of hit some of these in the middle. Alright, so there's that. So I brought in my works board for stamping, and I want to just start putting my pieces of paper together. So I have a 4x6 card, and then I've cut a piece of green cardstock that matched the leaves to 1/4 of an inch smaller in each direction. So we're just going to use tape runner here and get that stuck down. Alright, and if you go off the edge a little bit, just fold that tape in. Alright, so here's our card, and I am just going to eyeball the placement here. You could use a ruler if you want. Alright, and then I have my paper that we made with the alcohol ink, and I have cut this down to be a 1/2 inch smaller than the outer dimension of the card. So we're going to use our tape runner here as well. And then once again, I'm just going to place it where I think it looks good. Alright, and now we're ready for stamping. So I'm going to place my card in here. Let me grab the magnets off the back. Forgot to do that before I turned on the video. Alright. So I'm going to use the magnets to hold this down in place. And let's stamp our fairy first. So what I have here is I have Moana. I think that's how you say it. And this is FHS074. So fresh out of the package. And let's place her kind of down here along the bottom edge. Alright. And so then all I have to do is pick her up with my plate. There goes my whole card with her. Let me just double check my placement here. Alright, I think we're good there. Now, since it's a new stamp, I'm going to ink it and stamp off onto some scrap first, just to make sure it works well. Let me just grab that scrap. Oh yeah, that stamp's really nice. Okay, so I can just save this and cut that out for another project. And ink it up. Make sure I get the solid pieces really well. Make sure we got it where we want it on our card. And then I'm going to push. Now the nice thing about a stamping platform is that if it doesn't stamp the way we want it, we can always go back and stamp it again. But I think that's going to be good. Let's just do one more just to get a nice black on there. Once again, make sure we're lined up and give it a good stamp. Alright, so we were off center just a little bit, it looks like, but I think we can use that. Alright, so now for this, I have my sentiment here, and it says missing you. And so I'm going to stick that up here at the top. So I'm going to move my magnets down and put that there. And then pick up my stamp. And we'll give it a good inking. And I'm just going to push that down. Alright. So now I'm deciding where I want to put my leaves, and I'm going to go in and touch up her wings with this water-based Tombow marker in 403. So it's kind of like this bright greeny blue color. But I'm just going to go in and fill in her wings. So that they kind of stand out. Alright, so that's what that looks like. And then we're going to take some adhesive, figure out, where we want to put these leaves on this card. So let me go in and put some glue on these. Don't need a lot to get it to stick where we want it. And then once I have them where I want them, I'll go in with a scissor and snip off the excess. And just finishing up this card here. And I'm going to take some small scissors and go right along that line and snip off what I don't need. You could leave it if you wanted to. I'm just going to snip mine off. You could go in with an X-Acto knife. That would work as well. So now, just to finish up, I'm going to go in and put some shadows in around the leaves. And what I have here is a Derwent water, or it's Inktense pen. This is in field green. I also have it in ink black, so we'll just see which one works better. But I'm just going to go around the leaves here a little bit and give them somewhat of a shadow. And then once that's done, I will go back in with a wet paintbrush and kind of spread those around a bit. So I just want to go around the bottom edges here to give it some depth, and hopefully that green is just enough. If not, oh, I got extra scrap in there. If not, I can go back in with the black. Let's just see how this green works first. Alright, and then I'm going to take a paintbrush and just dip it in water. You could use a water brush if you wanted. I don't want it too wet, but I do want to be able to spread that green around to give it a shadow. And if that's looking too bright, which I think it might be, yeah, let's go in there with the black. use a lot less of the black. I do want to just add a little bit of darkness so that it blends. So just adding the water in to blend the ink out. You can also use the water to pick up if you don't like what's there, but I think this will work just fine. Working on taking the intensity of that green down just a bit. So the first time I hit it with the water, it's a little bit intense, and then I'm going to go back in and water it down some more just to blend it out and get into the little crevices. I want to soften that up as much as I can. You can see here I'm just adding more water. So I'm dipping my brush into my water, and then I am tapping it off on the top of my hand. I don't think you can see me doing that, but just getting rid of any excess water, because I really don't want too much. But these pencils blend really nicely, and so you can see I'm just going in, and this is just, you know, a little fussy detail. You don't have to do it, of course, but I like playing with my materials, so might as well use them, right? So I don't know if you think that adds something to the card or not. You can let me know down in the comment area. But there. Alright, I'm going to call that finished. So because I have an extra leaf and I had this strip of decorative paper, I am going to go ahead and add these to the inside. So just a real thin line of adhesive here on this strip. If I can get a hold of the end, there we go. Make sure I've got ink coverage. Alright, like that. And then we're going to take this extra leaf, a little adhesive all over it. And now I want it down in the corner. Let's figure out what kind of shape we want. Something like that. And of course it's stuck to my finger and not the card. And then just to clean things up, a little snip with the scissors. And there's the inside of the card that relates to the front. thought I would run through the background papers that I made just to show you. I did do some off camera, so I just wanted to run through the examples. This is the alcohol ink on a Gelli plate, and then using the Liquitex basic acrylic in transparent mixing white to move the ink off of the Gelli plate. So here is the examples that I made. I'm sure I'll use in future projects. It was really fun to play with, and I just went through and used up all of my cut papers that I had. I don't have a plan for any of these yet, but I just thought I would share with you what I made, and then ultimately the one that I chose for the card.